Okay. Ellen Tchaikovsky, Office of Legislative Counsel, yes, section 33. So this is part of the overall scheme in H687 for moving to the tiers and the exemption. So section 33 is amending 24 VSA 4460. And so this is addressing what to do with existing Act 250 permits in areas that have been fully exempted from Act 250. So there's a directive that when a project is going to be seeking an amendment to their municipal permit, the municipality shall take the relevant Act 250 permit conditions from the Act 250 permit and move them into the municipal permit so that the municipality can also enforce them. They also have enforcement authority generally over the existing Act 250 permits in those areas because the NRB and ANR no longer have enforcement authority over those permits.
Okay, so they take the criteria, but not the process. They fold that into their own process.
Permit conditions, not the criteria.
Can I ask a question
Yeah,
as an example?
yeah.
Like I know permits that require a certain amount of contribution for housing, like a dollar contribution. Sometimes there's a one-time contribution, sometimes there's an annual contribution for different things. Is that an example?
Yes, and so they don't have to carry over permit conditions that are no longer relevant, like if they pertain to the construction phase of the project or one-time thing that are no longer relevant, but the ongoing obligations that are still relevant are to migrate into municipal permits.
Okay, we're gonna digest that.
Can I ask a question about that one? Cause it's.
I do
Okay.
want us to
You
get
want us to
through.
get through, okay, I will have a lot of.
Yes,
questions.
absolutely.
Okay.
I need to understand the section better, and I also need to understand additional participants on municipalities who.
We don't have time to do that in the next 20 minutes.
I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I'm putting a pin in it.
Okay.
Just this
And I have a couple
I have
pins.
lots of pins in this one.
Yes, yes.
I want Act 250 clause out of tier 1A. Tier 2.
So section 34 is a tier 2 area report. So it's a report back from the ERB by February 15th on recommendations for adjusting the jurisdictional triggers within tier 2, including how to address currently, there's the parcel size jurisdictional trigger, criteria 9L, which is about sprawl and strip development, and accessory on farm businesses.
Okay.
Section 34A was one of the floor amendments. It's a report on wood products manufacturers. So by the end of this year, the NRB shall report back on recommendations for the permitting process on wood product manufacturers. Currently, wood products manufacturers go through a minor permit process. So they already have a benefit, a benefit there, but whether or not that is it's looking at whether or not that's working.
Okay.
Thank you.
Section 34B is another floor amendment. This is location-based jurisdiction review report. So ERB shall report back on February 1st, 2029 on any necessary updates to the tier system after it's been working for 2-ish years.
Good.
Morning.
Good morning. Section 35 is another report. This is on regulatory incentives for affordable housing. So Department of Housing and Community Development shall report back by the end of this year about incentives for affordable housing within designated areas. This comes up in regards to 311 also because if you don't have priority housing projects anymore, because all housing is exempt in areas, there's no built-in specific incentive for affordable housing construction. And so this is a report on recommendation on how to address that.
Yeah, I've already
But
heard
more
that.
housing house.
I've already heard that mentioned
Okay.
in response.
Section 36 starts the sections on regional plans and regional plan maps. So section 36 updates the goal section of chapter 117 to reference climate change and environmental justice and housing targets.
I wanna put a pin in, we have environmental justice language from the environmental justice director at ANR that has not gone anywhere. That the advisory council feels will strengthen their existence and ability to function, and I'm gonna have to have it.
Just a question, when you talk about outside groups
Yeah.
weighing in on it. Has the climate council, is climate council actively been following this and giving feedback and testifying? I don't
That's
know.
an interesting question.
Yeah.
Where is the climate council?
I don't know. I
Have
mean,
they been testifying in SNO?
I don't, so I am not aware actually generally of the climate council testifying specifically on bills.
They sent,
But,
yeah,
I mean, many of the people that testify before you every day are members of the climate council.
right, they sent a policy agenda in the beginning of session, and we had this long back and forth about getting them in, and it was like getting complicated as we move the bill, but they have lots of housing priorities, so.
They do,
Uh,
and I know they have vetted members that are lobbyists that are here and other people. It just would be nice,
Yeah.
I think that's a question mark for us here.
Can you ask the climate council to finally make that presentation to us, and maybe we put the climate council's principles in section 2 of this around housing?
And hopefully they'll update it based on what's already drafted too.
Yes,
Mhm.
that's it's a big question for me, anyway, that's a pin for me.
Section 37 updates the duties of the regional planning commissions to incorporate environmental justice principles, specifically meaningful participation and addressing environmental burdens and benefits in their work. And then it also gives substantial deference to their decisions on what are substantial regional impact.
In municipal regulatory.
Well, and it will and it would also apply to Act 250 proceedings. So I just highlighted that actually needs to include that as well, but.
So I'm a little concerned about the term environmental burden, I mean, what,
That's defined in the
It's defined.
EJ bill.
Yeah.
It is defined as certain uses of land, polluting facilities.
but that's
How you define EJ, costs and benefits. We can look at.
okay, it seems like such a
It's
not great term
well,
to use to pair with
It's
environment.
the basis of EJ that you have a fair distribution of burden and benefit.
Yeah, so meaningful participation and benefits and burdens are defined in the EJ statute.
From a planner point of view, I guess I understand.
Or
It's just
landfill,
not a
like
great
citing
word to
right,
in the
use.
bill.
Okay.
We don't.
I know. That's another conversation.
Citing in flood hazard areas. Section 38 amends the purposes of regional plans to add climate resilience, mitigation, and adaptation. And then sections 38 and 39 and 40 are the two kind of big ones. 39 updates the process for adopting the regional plan with some increased notice and public engagement provisions. Because and then the plans are being required to be submitted to the ERB for approval.
By Charlie's optimistic date of December 26th.
I don't think that's Charlie's.
Yes.
It was,
Yeah, it is.
it was.
Oh, that's different than some of the other dates.
And that's based on them receiving plans by a certain date, I would
Well,
think.
but or also pushing their communities to have.
So all regional plans, all of the regional plans currently exist. All they currently have to do, which is not to minimize it, but they have to comply with the updates that are in section 40, which all of them were working on already last year with their study committee. So I do think largely they're already working towards a lot of these things. It will involve a lot more work, but they have already begun the process. So to some extent.
Okay.
So section 40 then updates the required elements of the regional plan based on the regional planner's report from this year, and it adds the new land use categories. Section 41 is a study and that VAPTA is seeking to do, that they'll hire an independent contractor to do a strategic opportunities sort of update, look at what other states are doing with regional governments and seek to better serve municipalities in the state. Section 42 is an appropriation for a new biologist at the Department of Fish and Wildlife to assist in the implementation of this act.
That's like all these big things down to this small thing. And it's so interesting.
I know. It's really hard to.
Is it in the budget? That's
Right.
the big question.
So this
Because
is,
the budget's coming out
It is.
Jane knows of it.
Tuesday.
I don't know
Tuesday,
what,
she said.
I don't know what's going on in the Senate.
Yeah, the
budget.
Senate's a different
This-
question, but Jane knows of it.
As long as it's in one, the committee conference can have.
Yes, and it should be folded into the RIP report. They've asked for a lot of money anyways.
So, the section 42 is actually the amendment from House Appropriations. They added this position. And so this will actually move because it really does relate more to the Act 250 work, but, sections 43, 44, 45 relate to updating the municipal and regional planning fund to directly incorporate resilience planning. And so it amends the purposes of what that fund can be spent on to include flood protection and climate resilience projects. Section 44 appropriates $1.5 million to the fund to support those projects. Section 45 is 2 new positions, one for ACCD to administer the new grants, and then one for A&R to assist with financing climate resilience projects.
That's interesting. Are those planning processes part of the updates of the regional plans?
No.
Okay.
So this last major section of the bill is the designated areas update from the report from the department. So first, it repeals the existing chapter on the designated areas, which is chapter 76.
I do the last page of this.
And that repeal doesn't take effect for 2 years.
Mhm.
But
And then
it's,
to complete the report, because the report's still not completed, is it?
it is completed. But I wrote this bill, so here it is. We're not waiting for any more reporting.
Right. No, we're not.
Um,
But this is squarely our jurisdiction and we haven't had a chance to even.
So,
We haven't, last time you was here, it was not.
So, no, the delayed repeal is to give time to, the regional maps will actually designate the areas now. So there will be automatic designation through the regional plan maps. So an entirely new chapter 139 is created to address all of this. So it's largely, similar concepts, but rewriting a lot of language and renaming basically everything in this chapter. So, it's based on the report. I hope you did hear from them at some point, what the plan is. Currently, there are 5 designated areas.
That's the same as we have now.
There are 5 designated areas now. It's being streamlined into 2.
Could we have?
So there's a
in that section.
Reduction and then
And he can
streamlining
comment on
into
this
full.
whole bit.
And
He can comment on
automatic
687
designation. So,
him to bring relevance.
so the renaming
relevant
the
staff.
whole program to the community investment program as opposed to just the downtown program or the designated area program. So
Sure.
downtowns, village centers, and new town centers will be replaced with downtown and village centers.
Right,
There will be there's a benefits ladder, which is a
you're on
depending-
the second, you're on 47 now.
Yes, I'm in section 47, which is a long chapter. The designations will happen automatically through regional plans, based on how the areas are mapped in the regional plans. That's the automatic designation will occur. So the state board is not going to be doing the designations anymore. They'll just be doing the allocation of benefits and incentives. So the 3 current existing designations will move into this new centers designation. There will be a stepped ladder, so even though there's only 1 center designation, it does roughly coincide with step 1 is village center, step 2 is sort of new town centers, and step 3 is basically downtowns, where the more elements of the requirements you have, the more incentives you are eligible to receive. But it's a lesser burden on towns because the first designation is automatic, but they can seek additional designation if they have the other
It's
requirements.
automatic if they apply.
No, it's
No.
automatic.
That's a good thing yes, it's automatic based on the circumstances and the.
Plan
On the
maps.
maps, yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Okay, so
Which I
that
think is
will,
great.
that will help the small towns that
Yes,
don't
a
have
lot.
the capacity
Mhm.
to.
Totally.
Jump through it.
Yep,
Yep,
bless
the Zuntite.
The designated neighborhood development areas and growth centers will be replaced with designated neighborhoods.
So, sorry, I just wanna put a pin in this. This is, remember we were talking about carrots to get towns to do the mapping sooner rather than later?
you.
This is a good pin, is once your map is done, you get certain automatic designations, and for some towns, that's a good carrot.
Or some of us don't want.
There's
I
a
mean, I've done
ability to
plans,
opt out.
and
Oh, you can't opt
there are
out?
no designated growth areas.
Right, so maybe
Well,
We don't want growth.
not in this, sorry, not in this, there's not.
Do have 7 minutes to
Yeah.
get through, if we're
I mean,
almost done, and then we
it's
have.
pretty- we're pretty much done.
Okay.
I mean, there's, the transition on this, I think, needs a lot of work, actually, I mean, to make sure that it works, because, I don't know that it works. It
Yeah.
might.
So
Yeah.
where is the transition section?
It's
There was one.
5805.
So 5805, but also there's transition language in both 5803 and 5804.
That's,
Do you mean, and it kind of ties to this? Is this like how we're
No,
viewing the transition? Okay.
I'm talking about the transition from the current designations to the
Yeah.
new designations.
I don't know
It
if
is-
that needs its own timeline.
I mean, I tried to make one, it's
Okay,
confusing.
it's in here?
No, it's,
Okay.
I submitted it to the house, but I took it out because I don't think it necessarily works, so
Okay.
it's not submitted to you, but,
Okay.
maybe it does work.
Shoot your shot, like share with us and we'll see. We'll see, maybe it might be helpful to look at.
so are you saying these sections 5810 for 12 are the transition?
No,
No,
I'm not
I
saying that.
50, you said 58 something for.
5805 has the word transition next to it.
Yeah, I see that, but she's saying
Yeah.
it's inadequate at the moment.
well, I'm
It
saying.
needs a lot of work.
A
It needs
different
a lot.
thing.
I'm saying 5803, 5804 also have transition language in them. They have different dates. I wanna make sure all the dates
Yes.
work.
Yes.
Yeah, they need to be in sync.
There, yeah, I think that is a very important flag.
And just
Should've.
from like a legal standpoint, to make sure all the dates actually line up. And maybe they did, I haven't gotten much feedback on this, so maybe they do work.
Yeah, the league needs to.
How
Yeah.
can we help you with that?
Well, you could read them. I mean,
Okay, read, so like read all,
We need to align them, we do.
read the statute, read
I
the
just would like
timeline.
somebody, I would like somebody to check my work because
Okay.
I wrote this whole clock basically.
Right.
Okay.
No, we know
Because
you
there
did.
was no language in the report.
So did
Oh my
anyone do a
gosh.
timeline on all the sections and all the requirements?
For the designated area?
Let's get.
Well, there
that.
is
this.
So I made,
Oh,
I made a timeline of the general provisions of 687. I did not make a timeline on the designated area.
where's,
That should be maybe at the back of your,
thank you.
probably at the back.
And you can have mine if you don't.
No, it's okay, I'll get it.
Okay.
It's nice. See if it's out.
Don't
See if they have it, but it's okay.
There's-
Sure,
So then just quickly, there's the only sort of new things in this section are 5806 and 5807 are new language. Department's gonna maintain a database on all the designated areas, which they already do, sort of not in a statutory requirement way, but they already do. And then we're just gonna develop a procedure for the technical assistance that they're gonna be providing to municipalities. 5810, 5811, and 5812 are all existing statutes that are in chapter 76A. It's just moving them. The only change is that currently the Better Places program is set to sunset this year. So,
I'd like to put a pin in that and extend that if that hasn't already happened.
Do we just remove the sunset? I mean.
so this is the question, I think. We should check the effective dates, but the House is interested in making sure that that also doesn't sunset, so.
But it does,
moving
I don't
ahead-
have it in 24, so.
No,
I'm gonna just, if you maybe wanna read the section,
Yeah.
they did eliminate it in the new language, so the new language makes it permanent,
okay,
so yes.
okay, so if we align with them, we're removing the sunset.
Yeah.
Program just to get.
Is it funded?
Not this year yet, and
It's this crowdfunding, so.
they need to be funded, my own opinion, and if they are not yet funded, I would hope it was one of the things we asked.
The last three sections update the downtown and village center tax credit program to add references to the new designated areas. It also makes changes to the flood mitigation tax credit, which was created last year, so that buildings that are not located in the flood hazard area can apply for the credit. It also increases the credit amount for code improvements from $50,000 to $100,000, and then for flood mitigation from $75,000 to $100,000.
So their budget doesn't have an increase in the downtown tax credits to fire alley. And that's not on the table right now in Senate appropriations.
So sorry, what's not on the table?
The increase of the downtown tax credit.
And we had increased it to 5 million.
Yeah.
And that is in 829, I think, isn't it? The increase of the, no?
No, I don't think it made it.
So
They're
we did
trying to
talk
fund everything.
I know where Jane stands, I just wanna make the committee clear that it's now a conversation between finance and appropriations if we were to pull it out of the ashes.
We would hope, well, no,
Well, we can't say we want everything.
it's just steady state at the moment, right? It's just no
Yeah.
increase.
As long
Yes,
as
we
it's
do.
in,
No, it's not.
as long as there's a funding in the budget, one budget,
Mhm.
it is subject to discussion in committee and conference. The budget is getting voted Tuesday, but the concrete is pretty set now.
Yeah.
It's,
That's,
So
I'm
yeah,
scheduled to vote out the necessary funding for the budget this afternoon.
in fact, why don't we make, Magali, let's make Tuesday's committee discussion.
Yeah.
Our budget, Terry. Like, I have tried to tell people what's happening, and I have just learned that we have until Tuesday, so
Yeah.
that's why I was in there
What
this
she
morning.
said.
Yeah, so, okay, so
so maybe we could,
Wendy got refugee housing funding. We have some of the programs we care about, they're finding more money for rehab, but I did the best we can with 311 to advocate for what we want housing related, so.
so
you'll
I'll talk
share
more
all
about
those
that.
with-
Yeah, JFO's working on
Okay.
kind of like how to visualize that
Right.
in a spreadsheet, and I'll have it at lunch and I'll share it on Tuesday.
so I would just put a pin on Better Places, which is a little bit of an orphan at the moment, and Brownfields, which I know Jane will probably tell me isn't in our box. But it matters enormously because a lot of our development that we're talking about, things have to be cleaned up.
I would say at this point, those two things are a fully finance and appropriations conversation. And I don't have any more money. I had $3.5 million and Jane and I negotiated on what is being funded other places versus what from 311 of our priorities can go into that PTT increase. So those are two large appropriations that I am not gonna be able to find money for by Tuesday, so.
But we can
I think
still talk to Jane.
Yeah, I think Brownfields is funded by the
Brownfields is something that
feds.
matters
too.
enormously.
By the federal government.
It'll, yeah.
No, it's also us, and
Okay.
it is an appropriation that we
It will
make.
be.
Okay, so I would suggest doing some work with JFO when you can find them. If you wanna try find money for those two things. That was not
I mean,
something from 311
There's,
that I could negotiate on.
they're trying to fund everything that we've been doing. So we've been funding brownfields. They're going to.
Thank you,
Anyway,
Ellen.
they are going to try and they're gonna fund
Bye.
brownfields.
At the same level that we've had.
At last years is my understanding of their goal.
Okay.
What they're saying is, we don't have money to increase this year.
Oh,
Mhm.
okay,
We
so
are-
that should
We are
help
having
balance.
to raise,
You're
I
amazing.
think we're gonna raise close to $20 million to balance the budget.
Okay. Okay. Oh my gosh, thank you from the whole committee, thank you,
What?
thank
We
you,
brought
thank you.
some
You're
key
benefiting from the plea of a pregnant lady. And you're benefiting from the Land Access and Opportunity Board, which is funded at $1 million in our budget request. And
Thank you so much for your support. We asked for the
Was
bare
needs by
minimum this
appropriation.
year.
yeah,
Bare minimum,
Yeah.
only covers our overhead and our
do
statutory.
you wanna say your name for the record?
Ornella, not Figueroa.
Who's this?
This is my child. What's your name?
Hi, nice to meet you. We are very grateful for the work of the LAOB. As we look at our housing goals and how it fits into our Act 250 proposals moving forward, we want LAOB and EJ Council, Climate Council to start weighing in on how we.
Thank you so much for that. That's one of the things we keep noticing is that a lot of community engagements get done, but then everybody at the decision-making circle is the usual player.
Right.
And I think that we need to just, kind of add more voices to that decision-making circle, and that's what we're asking for, and with your support, then we can hang around for another year and keep doing this work, and we really appreciate it. And
Yes.
there's smoothies upstairs.
We are clear,
Um,
we are clear. You guys had us well.
Right.
Thank
You
and-
know how to
and
get
thanks
funding,
to
it's
our
like feeding us
amazing-
well every year.
And thanks to our amazing kitchen who collaborated with us
I know,
and worked together to like use your same ingredients that are always around,
Yes.
just a little different.
well,
Yeah.
actually, we do use a lot of farms that,
Yeah,
that you guys.
Yeah.
That also just
Same,
like
yeah.
spices and, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah,
yeah,
these
this
kind of
smells
work.
amazing.
Yeah, they're
Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, LAOP.
Yeah, thank you.
Land Access and Opportunity Board.
Yes, they're.
We appreciate your support.
Full array upstairs, it's great.
Thank you, thank you, nice to meet you.
Yeah.
It's okay. Okay, Representative Ashley Hartley. We have 7:04 somewhere in front of us. Yes. Here,
Yeah.
I saw it, but
But
I'll
now I put it
on
on.
it.
Are we,
I was getting these little hints of Act 250 changes.
Remember, that was all we did last year.
Like,
I got from McCormick this morning, he's writing his weekly report. What are we doing for housing other than changing Act 250?
Well, when he heard our full bill in finance, he said, this is a good bill. There's lots about housing that isn't Act 250.
Yeah,
So
I
I hope he
I-
reflects that.
He's proud of that.
If he wants the section by section summary of 311, he can do it.
He had the, somebody said this,
Yeah, I don't, he was in trade as to the meeting in natural resources.
Okay, very different topic that we haven't heard yet. Besides alcohol and cannabis, this is our last bill introduction that is new from the House.
Yes.
So not last but not least, especially because you do have alcohol and cannabis, so third to last. Thank you, Representative Bartley. The floor is yours.
Well, for the record, Representative Ashley Bartlett, I serve Fairfax in Georgia. Thank you for having me here this morning.
What happened to the food? Sorry.
I just put it up there.
Oh my God, the important thing.
What, why? I thought you were like distributing it or something. Just
Oh my
I'm
goodness.
eating it now and I'll pass it around.
So as you know, both bodies, the House and the Senate, have really taken pay disparities and kind of leveling the playing field for everyone in our business world very seriously. Earlier this session, we've had anti-discrimination language go through the House. And really what this bill is it is taking what is already considered best practice in the HR world and turning it into law. So H704 is an act relating to this disclosure of compensation and job advertisements. And so just some brief background. Right now, women in the United States make 84% of what men make. However, in Vermont, we're doing better, which is 93. Women make 93% of what men earn.
That's actually a new figure because we were 84 2 years ago,
Yeah,
so that's good.
It's great. However, I would love to see 100%. Think we can all agree on that. And
Legislators all.
but at 10%, that's good.
yeah, it's great. And I think it's because
Yeah,
of
labor shortage helps.
labor shortage helps and then other aspects that we've already passed. So allowing employees to talk about what their pay is with one another has been huge in identifying pay disparities. Also the prohibition of practices that require salary history on job applicants is a way to kind of stop the difference in pay.
Organizing our lowest paid workers
Yeah.
our hospitals.
So Vermont is definitely far beyond many other states. This bill targets two significant factors in contributing to wage disparities. It's inequities in negotiation process and lack of transparency in compensation. Pay negotiation often disadvantages women and people of color who may be perceived as greedy or aggressive for negotiating assertively, unlike men who are viewed more positively in such situations. And research actually indicates that women will usually actually ask for less during negotiations to avoid negative perceptions. When employers enter negotiations without predetermined salary range, candidates tend to rely on their past as a reference point. So it kind of voids the prohibition of actually asking what your current salary is. It's common for applicants to request a salary that is 10 to 20% higher than their previous earnings. However, given that women and people of color typically earn less than white men in the same occupations, they would need to demand a much larger increase to reach equity. Consequently, women and people of color often state lower salary requirements during negotiations. Providing applicants with clear information about negotiation context significantly reduces gender disparities in negotiations, and with this information, gender-based differences in negotiations diminish, leading to fairer outcomes.
Do you have a study on that? Like where it's been implemented and fair outcomes?
I don't in here, but I can send you what I.
That'd be great.
And so when I'm not here, I work in human resources. I think it's really important. Like I said, it is truly best practice to provide some sort of a wage range or salary range on a job description. That being said, I have never worked for an employer that doesn't have some semblance of an idea of what they want to offer somebody.
Right.
You have budgets, you need to make sure that you're hiring in and sticking to your budgets. So I don't think it's necessarily accurate for a company to not know what they're planning to offer somebody.
Okay.
So there are really two sections of this bill. Section 1 requires the job advertisement to include a salary or wage range for a job advertisement or a notice that a job is paid on commission. I think a wage or salary range is much more feasible for employers than a specific amount. I think it also opens up more candidates to job applications. Specifically, women are less likely to apply for a job if they don't think they meet every single requirement, where it's been shown that men will just kind of spaghetti.
Go for it.
Yeah. And see what sticks. The job advertisement must include a job description, should one exist. In the section of the bill.
And this advertisement can be on their website. It doesn't have to be like a 7 days ad and they put all of this on there.
Correct.
Exactly, and you can.
So that was something, a job advertisement was something I was concerned about. It's like,
Yeah.
what does that actually mean? Because especially during COVID, our labor market is still pretty wonky. How many of us have seen, help wanted signs as you're passing restaurants?
I have a question about that.
Yeah, so that is not included. So the requirements of the first section are,
So if they put in a 7 days ad, they don't have to list the job salary range there.
it depends. So it would
Depends on
depend,
how fulsome the ad is. Like,
if it's, let's say it's a mom and pop general store and the ad is help wanted at the general store. No, they wouldn't. If it is a specific cashier, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, they would then need to say $17 to $19.
How is that written into the policy?
well, it says in any format, advertisement means written notice in any format on page 2, top page 2. But it does say general announcements, like the one you just talked about, like help wanted. would not
Okay,
include.
advertisement does not include.
But it does include in any
May.
format written
Okay.
notice.
Yes.
So that is a little more fulsome than I thought. Cause it could direct you to see for more, see the website or something.
And you can definitely do that as well.
Okay, so advertisement does include a paper ad, but not a digital or electronic ad.
Yes.
Where is that?
So that was more, when we were thinking digital, we were thinking, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting the name that I just constantly hear on the radio, but like think of a radio.
Oh, indeed.
But digital is the internet.
So indeed, it would be considered
As a written.
as
Yeah.
a written.
Like LinkedIn.
LinkedIn would be considered a written.
Is that
Oh,
clear?
verbal isn't to digital.
Yes.
Okay. Beta is doing a lot of radio ads.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they're actually disclosing the salary starting point.
Yeah.
Does it need to be the range or are you okay with the starting point?
The starting point is fine. It's some sort of disclosure.
Okay.
It gives people a ballpark.
Exactly,
Okay.
exactly. And it's, you know, what in good faith.
Mm-hmm.
So there are currently 8 other states that have this sort of
Okay.
disclosure. Colorado, New York, California, Nevada, Washington, Connecticut, Maryland, Rhode Island. Every state is a little bit different in what they are requiring.
Mm-hmm.
But there were a few states that had employers say, for example, starting at $15 an hour to $200 an hour. That's not in good faith. It's not a good faith range.
Okay.
Um,
How did you account for that good faith?
Do you define good faith?
I believe it is in there.
In good faith to be accurate. Okay.
Does the labor department enforce this?
It is not, it would go through, oh my goodness, I'm so sorry.
Or the Attorney General?
Yes, it's the Attorney General, thank you.
Is that referenced somewhere in here?
Or does it need to be? I don't know.
It is, so when we went through it, we ended up doing a strike all night.
Okay.
So.
Yeah,
with-
and so. If the interest bill, we might wanna just put in the enforcement and education, I mean.
I
Whatever,
believe it is part, not of the specific bill, but of the section of law
That it's in.
that it's in.
right, right, okay.
And
Yeah, I
then,
mean, we don't have lich counsel here right now, so.
Yeah.
that's not the-
and Damien will be very helpful.
Yeah.
And so the other aspects of this are, it exempts, employers with 4 or less employees.
Okay.
General hiring notices like wanted signs,
Mhm.
general invitations.
Mr. Sis,
Mhm.
well, Ashley, why did you settle on, why is it all employers? It doesn't strike me that it's, I mean, why did we accept smaller employers?
So I had a few businesses in Fairfax reach out to me, Fairfax and Georgia, really concerned about micro businesses. A lot of times HR is a very, like, it's a difficult field. I'm constantly learning new things and I have that background. And we find that a lot of micro employers unfortunately don't have some sort of HR professional to help with the changing of
Mhm.
laws.
That or just like, how do you advertise a salary range that you can stand by legally if something comes up? I mean, there's more ramifications.
How much flexibility is there in terms of what's reasonable?
And what?
In an ad, for example, if I have an ad for a clerical position and I say it will pay somewhere between $17 and $35 an hour, is that okay?
Yes. I mean, I would assume it would be okay. It's when someone says something like an outrageous range where,
Well, the difference between $17 and $35 is probably
That's
an
pretty
outrageous
huge
range.
range.
Did you take testimony from the AG?
no, we did not.
Okay.
But not as
What do other states do in that regard? Do you have any sense of how they deal with what's reasonable and what isn't?
That is something that Damien can provide more insight on. as I had mentioned, each state is a little bit different. So Maryland was actually the first state, and their law just requires that a salary range be shared upon request.
That is great.
So like and
I leaning in. I don't, you know.
state is a little bit different.
Why don't we go back to that?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
So
I think you mentioned it at the beginning, that it's solving some of the disparity issues in negotiation, because women won't necessarily ask about it.
But we're asking for studies on showing that this does help.
and something I think that, you know, maybe 5 years ago, we wouldn't necessarily be thinking about is that employees or potential employees are, I believe, 90% more likely to apply for a position that actually has a range in their posting. And right now, our businesses are really struggling to find candidates, and employees.
Who'd you have in from the business community? We have to ask that question now.
So-
Some other bills we have.
Absolutely. So we had the president of Vermont Business Roundtable.
Okay.
We had,
Is that still Seth?
yes, okay. We had the executive director of Vermont Commission on Women, so not necessarily specifically business focused, but
They're pretty focused.
Well, they're not just doing it for women in enterprise.
exactly. She was
Right.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And then we had,
Did VBR support the bill?
yes. And then we had Megan Sullivan from,
No.
But I think the problem, to go to Ann's point, problem we're trying to solve, right, is that more women will apply to a job, or more people will apply if they see the job range, the salary range. And more women will, some of that early negotiation will already have transpired, so maybe more women will apply. Is that what you said earlier?
yes, and anecdotally, as someone who works in human resources, and I have gone through hundreds of hiring and interviews, the amount of times where, you know, years ago when this wasn't necessarily best practice, I was interviewing somebody, we had a range in mind, and I think we were on like the second interview, and then all of a sudden, this individual had changed what they were expecting in their salary expectation, which at the end of the day, wasted our time, wasted their time. I think if there's more communication
Yes,
between
yeah.
the two, I think it really helps everybody.
Why did you all decide against the upon request?
We really did not take testimony on that.
Okay.
Please.
The upon request, you can learn the salary.
That's what Maryland did, and Maryland hasn't updated theirs.
Not from my knowledge.
Right. I would just say the conditions in Maryland, they have a lot of HR folks. It's a pretty densely populated area. I agree that Vermont just really doesn't have enough HR. And I would also say accounting and finance for small and medium businesses. So the more we can honestly help them professionalize and have our overall systems be logical and better for both businesses and employees, I think that's better.
I mean, I will just like, having been through this yesterday, you know. Businesses can be disparaged, they can be, you know, for a salary that someone in the internet doesn't think is, you know, good enough. I mean, they
don't need to apply. I mean, if they don't think that the salary is enough, they don't need to apply.
no.
You don't
Nobody's
want to
applying.
criticize.
Well, it's just that there's, you know, did you hear from businesses reasons why they would have concerns publishing a salary range
We did
in
not.
7 days?
We did not.
I mean, obviously, the competitive reasons why you would want to post a salary.
So you didn't in that,
So I
the
think from a
business roundtable
business
said
perspective,
it's
when you
not-
want to get the lowest possible salary, you could.
Maybe, but not.
You may not, but you may,
No, I
depending
think
upon
you
the
do.
nature of the job.
Yeah. But let me just also say that municipalities generally do
Yes. Public jobs.
advertise and counties advertise. We don't have a lot of people in county government. I think state government probably advertises,
Yes,
and
they
so that helps them.
Yes, most state entities, municipalities do, I believe that it is
Required.
I don't know if it's required.
So
I know
Like,
for the, I know for
busted.
state of Vermont, it
Oh, okay.
so if you're gonna
Okay.
apply to like any job for the
So
state of Vermont,
Magali,
it
the
is.
HE
Okay.
and
Um,
the state HR.
And the state's a major
Which is
employer.
bad.
Yeah. So this is really focused on, I probably should have said more public sector jobs.
I'm sorry.
This isn't focused on public sector?
No, it is.
Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, it is.
I mean, it's
As
not,
opposed
it's,
to private?
no, so, I didn't say,
Okay, the other way around.
thank you. It's Friday morning.
Oh, no,
Okay.
totally.
But we'll find out from Beth, but did you have her in? To find out if state employees are, when she advertises state jobs, if they are required,
They are,
they are,
yes, they are.
Okay.
And they may be required by their own policies.
or ours that we've said.
Right, but municipalities, I believe voluntarily,
Mhm.
put in the salary because it is helpful because then you don't have people having unrealistic expectations.
Exactly.
We also have fixed budgets, which in the private sector you don't necessarily have.
But if,
And I think maybe
I don't wanna
municipalities
waste
fall on
money.
a range of small and large. I
Well,
mean,
yeah.
Burlington does, I don't know if every town.
Oh, actually, I'll check the job description. We just have a new job posting in Woodside. I'll check that because I think that's
well, it's,
great.
I believe it's optional because, yeah, I've hired folks. And then there's also multiple different ways that you hire people, but in,
Well, are we having tip rating because municipalities would be included in this?
no, they're not included.
Why not?
Municipalities, or
Everybody
maybe
will.
they are.
They are.
Oh, okay,
This is-
so yeah, we should leave the LCT. But generally, it's just good practice because,
Yeah.
you know,
I.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
the state of Vermont advertises do not have the salary listed in it. You can find the salary because it's part of the schedule, but
Mhm.
the advertisements do not contain that typically.
I think if we're
I
trying to
don't
get
know.
more,
We can discuss, we have more committee discussion.
I was
Senator
if
Cummings.
this is best practice and almost everybody is doing it, why are we,
It's not
Eight
every-
why aren't we
Yeah.
doing it?
yeah.
That's a good question.
There's a lot of
That's
If
really
it's
right out
best
the bat.
practice, pick up 7 days and look at the advertising back and see how few people actually list the salary range in those ads. If it's
They aren't
best practice,
required to,
They're
yeah.
not doing it.
So we'll have more debate. I did wanna give Megan some minutes before, are we going to? No, not
No,
okay.
I am though.
Okay, you're going before it.
Say
So
bye
yeah,
now.
Megan, we will give you more time. I have a couple specific questions. And maybe other people do have you, maybe we'll have you back, but, tipped wages. So I actually have a very interesting opposite concern. People pass, I love Burlington Bagel Company, right? And they are the ones who famously advertise on Route 7 starting at $25 an hour. Your wage doesn't start at $25 an hour, but they can guarantee that with tips, you will make $25 an hour.
Okay.
I always wondered if it's legal for them to do that, but did you all think about tipped wages and what a restaurant would be putting out there?
We did not. I
Okay.
believe never. I'm gonna say, I'm going to assume, I know what I would give as
If
a
you
rec-
have your house general, this isn't a house.
Yes.
general. Okay.
I know I would, like, as an HR professional, I know what recommendation I would give to like a restaurant.
What recommendation would you give?
I would say that whatever your tipped wage or non-tipped wages, so I think it's 4 something, 5.
So we may actually be precluding Burlington Bagel from saying $25 an hour. I don't even know if that's good or bad, but.
I would imagine we would be because, well, let's find out about tip wages. 'cause
Yeah, I think that would be a great avenue to look more into.
Okay, I think that was, I do have a slight issue with the paid solely on a commission. I don't know why we leave it on solely, because like tipped wages, it seems hard to say someone's solely paid on commission versus like most people have a base salary. I don't even know if it's legal.
So I
Besides like cut nice to just pay people on commission.
that, like, picking up on that language would be a great question to
Okay.
ask Damien. I believe he used. If he worked from Connecticut's language,
Okay.
and I think we borrowed some.
Cause it's a challenge, commissions, being paid by commission is a bit of a challenge.
Yeah.
It's hard to advertise, I mean, you can say, this job is paid, but it's a little like tips, so I think we should get commissions and questions answered.
Okay, thanks so much, Representative Riley. We'll put it forward.
Yeah.
Megan, we'll get you in the witness chair. I can't find my agenda. I don't know if we're delaying yet, but.
Committee discussion, are you okay?
Oh, good.
Being delayed.
Well, yay, okay.
Or done in
Great.
advance.
I got it.
That actually scheduled.
Good morning, Megan Sullivan, Vice President of Government Affairs for the Vermont Chamber of Commerce. Thank you for having me in on 704. As Representative Bartley said, I did testify on this bill in the House. We did not testify specifically in support or opposition, but I think like the committee have a lot of questions based on the language that's in here that, we got a couple of answers on in some cases, but still have a lot of remaining questions. I think generally, as was stated, this is considered best practice. We have 15,000 job openings in the state. I'm not sure we need to legislate every best practice. I think businesses are desperate for employees and they are going to take on any best practice they can to get their employees. We're asking a lot of the business community, and in many cases rightfully so. But there also needs to be some time to absorb changes, to make changes. And so the more we ask every year, I think we just need to look holistically at like, what is it that we're asking them to already take on? Can they take on this? Do we need to do this year? If this is best practice, if we've already done a lot. And I think that was, go back and look at Seth Bowden's testimony, but that was one of the first things he said is, do we need to legislate best practice? So I would
Okay.
push back a little bit that he testified in support. I think he similarly, it wasn't in support or opposition, but more like, is this really what we need to be focusing on right now when we have plenty of crises that are the state is dealing with. One thing I asked in the House is, if the purpose of this is to deal with wage disparity, are we going to put that purpose in? Are we going to measure if this changes anything to the point of what are there studies that other states have done that says this has had an impact? That's not in here. And I think the work that's being done on government accountability and saying when we pass something, let's look back and see if it has the intended outcomes we're looking for.
No intent section.
No,
We should,
That doesn't appear that we're going to go forward, at least what I hear in GovOps on doing anything about government accountability this year.
No, we are.
We are, what are we doing?
We are, in fact, we're funding and, I'll fill you in.
And Phil,
I thought we
me
were going forward with government accountability bill to implement what we did
We
in the
are
study.
taking it up and we discussed it in
Because
the
I was
budget,
told
as one of our
that,
budget
they had
priorities.
asked us to come over, yes, as the co-chairs, myself and Jessica Brumstead of the committee that looked into government accountability, and Jessica told me yesterday that we
Don't
were
think
not
that's,
asked.
I don't think that's correct, but let's chat about
Well,
that.
the only reason I raise it up is, as we talk about doing things like this and looking at accountability, if we're doing this and not looking at accountability, it's a question of what our priorities are.
right.
it probably would be a pretty simple Google search if we are targeting wage disparity and we are at 93 cents. You ought to be able to look at the states that have done this and see if they're doing better than we are.
There's so many variables though.
Right,
It's
there are
really
so many
hard.
things that go into that, so I think that that's just a point that we raised of
we need some study to tell us.
something
something,
developed
you know,
that
like
is
we can-
doing.
Yeah.
So a few points that we had brought up to the House, we appreciate them incorporating the small business exemption. We see that was done in other states, and I think to that point, if you look at a one-person seasonal landscaper who may be looking for to hire a kid to do lawn mowing on Front Porch Forum, like, are they gonna be in this? Do they, so I think that's where we're looking at those micro business exemptions of, they don't have HR professionals, they don't have any professionals. They're, just a one-person, two-person shop who are trying to make it, and some of these requirements can, be not only daunting, but they don't necessarily know,
Right.
don't have the opportunity to understand all these HR requirements that the businesses that have HR professionals.
Yeah.
Either full-time or part-time. So we appreciate that change. The other change we brought up was, if someone has a help wanted sign outside, do they now have to include the job, the wage range and the description? There was some changes made to that to clarify that, it has to be specific. I still think there may be more work that needs to be done to that, because you could have the sign on the general store that says,
Yeah,
now hiring cashier,
right,
see within.
right.
That's in written communication with a specific
Yeah.
job.
But it's exempt here. That's a
Is it?
general announcement. That is
But
not
if
a
it
full job.
says,
It was not.
if it
clear.
says a cashier,
Yeah,
that's a general announcement of a specific position.
so I'm gonna say this and then open it up for discussion and more questions, but
That all
this-
means one.
So a few more pieces.
okay, well,
Yeah.
let me say this and then you can continue. We do not have time to make this a priority for next week. And if things next week spill over into the week after that, we do not have time to make this a priority for the week after that. I mean, we don't have an hour or more to answer all of these questions. So if someone cares about this bill and wants to talk to all of the stakeholders we've mentioned outside of committee and move the ball forward, we can then schedule some time for it when we have a new draft. But for now, we don't have the time of day to answer all of the questions that we have about this bill.
Really? We don't?
We don't, Allison, so you can do the work outside of committee?
Can I raise a few more questions?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, because I have more questions.
Okay, the definition Vermont job opening, located in Vermont, or if it is located outside Vermont, reports to a supervisor office or work site in Vermont. We saw in 2021, Colorado had national companies saying for remote jobs, Colorado residents not eligible to apply to try and get around this. So national companies who are saying you could work anywhere, except if you work in Colorado, then we have to disclose this. We don't want to disclose this, so we're not allowing Colorado residents to apply. Now, Colorado said, you can't do that. But just say, I would want to make sure the way this is written, we're not going to be excluding Vermonters from Vermont for remote work opportunities. Because remote work opportunities are especially, can be beneficial to women. So, is this incorporating lessons that other states have learned? So that
Right.
we don't see national companies
You
saying.
have a supervisor in Hula, but you're part of a
Well, and then the
global.
supervisor
Yeah.
part is a whole other
Yeah,
issue. I did not bring this up in the House, because I didn't hear about it from members until afterwards.
Mhm.
But there are companies who have
Similar.
employees at a
Yeah.
physical location in another state that report to a supervisor in
like
Vermont.
dealer.com.
Dealer.com, National Life, any hotel chain,
Mhm.
our larger telecom providers where a supervisor may be physically located in Vermont. And you're the regional manager and you're in Vermont and the state director in New Hampshire reports to Vermont. That company would need to hire their New Hampshire resident based on New Hampshire law. But because the Vermont supervisor would
Yeah,
be under this law, it creates a lot of confusion for those employers to understand and may create conflict in if I'm hiring someone physically in New Hampshire
yeah.
and I have to follow Vermont
Any
law
other
because the
points?
supervisor.
My comment still stands.
Right,
We have two other bills that get very complicated very quickly, alcohol, tobacco, cannabis, that we have
We
not
haven't
even,
even heard.
yes.
Yeah.
So
okay, so that,
someone needs, is someone
So
going
Wendy
to
and I
find
might
time?
take a stab at this because I actually think wage disparity is an issue this committee has cared a lot about in the past and
This
I,
is not the right.
well, that's a question. It is it, and if we have more.
Are you agreeing with that, Senator Hurd?
Well, I mean, I'll talk.
We can chat about
Okay.
it.
I will get back to you if we
You
want
can
to.
continue to share other.
I think the only
Yeah, but
other
other-
piece
yeah,
is,
sorry,
if the AG is the enforcement agent, there's nothing really in here about compliance, is
Okay.
there, what are,
if you
What does
all,
this
if you
mean
all
for
move forward and
businesses?
have conversation, please
Maybe-
take my notes because I would need all of these questions.
Okay. Thank you, that's helpful.
Yeah.
And then can I just say something?
Yeah.
Just generally in
Yeah.
this area, I think in the area of, not even compliance, but just hiring people and, administration. I think we could do better as a state, and I would hope that it could be more voluntary. Like, and I don't know if the state is a good resource when businesses have questions about labor law, because there's national labor law, and then we have labor law.
That's
So, okay, so I hope that they're accessible and helpful, but then there are also all kinds of, financial, regulations that I'm not sure that folks know about. I know that there are a lot of things municipalities don't know about, so I'm guessing that there are a lot of things private companies don't know about. And I just think generally we could do better. I
Yeah.
just wanna say
Right.
that.
I will say.
I don't know if this is the way to do it.
In
but-
our separate bill on data privacy, that's why we are talking separately to the Center for Women in Enterprise, the Small Business Clinic, Professionals of Color Network, a lot of organizations that work with small businesses that often get hit with the liability of not complying with these as small businesses without technical assistance or a
going
lawyer.
forward.
They-
An
you-
example,
right,
you
yeah.
don't know how you're gonna deal with federal wage and labor law.
Sure,
You don't have the money for an attorney.
Yeah,
So you just don't grow.
right.
right, or you just don't look at the law.
Right.
And
Yeah.
you're not,
So
So
those
otherwise,
organizations,
examiner
or
is
who
my
I
next
listen to at
one.
least, if you wanna talk to them about this, none of them were heard on this bill. And if you wanna go talk to them, that's great.
I think we need a more comprehensive look at this, but it's a pretty big issue. So I'll,
You don't have
I'll
time to
talk,
cover
I
it.
understand her, and Senator Clarkson, I will go over this,
Yeah,
and we'll get back to you.
yeah, I mean, I can't, we're going to be starting.
And if
budget
you have
conference
other-
committee soon, but
Yeah,
We are always happy to be part of the conversation of how can we help businesses get it right.
I wanna take another 20 minutes for committee discussion now.
Okay, I just need to get some computer help.
Oh, okay,
Okay,
Delia's right
That's
there.
right.
okay, I didn't know if you wanna discuss something in
No,
particular.
I need to just take about 5 minutes.
Yeah, that's
to go
fine.
Get my
Okay.
computer.
Can I take one, just
Yeah,
like
sure.
30 seconds?
As long as you're okay with Senator Cummings leaving to get her computer help.
I'm fine.
No, it was gonna be on the Crown Act and I'm forgetting the bill. Number.
Great.
Yeah.
It has third reading today.
Oh, great.
but when
We
it's,
supported it. We
Okay,
in the
okay.
house, and I mean, I didn't know if you'd heard from employer organizations, but then we had conversations with some folks who were like, if you have headwear requirements,
Yes, we heard that was
are
here.
are you okay? And they were like, if somebody is willing to work for us, we'll
Right.
get them whatever
Yeah.
headwear they need in order to be there. We are desperate
We
for
did
every
hear
employee.
from businesses.
So now you are, and
Thank you.
Especially
Thank you.
now.
Before
we-
third
we
reading,
looked into
you're
it
here
and
for
we're good.
businesses. We
Yeah,
really
that's
appreciate you.
thank you.
Okay. Thank you,
Thank
Megan.
you.
Well, I mean, while you're here, is there anything else you wanted to comment on? We're taking up H55, it's on UI
And
and
I'm
we're.
not, I've gotta read the new draft of.
Yeah,
55.
we got that.
Okay,
Yeah, so I haven't seen the newest.
okay, I'm trying to think of anything else you might have, data privacy, we've heard you, we've heard a lot of you.
Yeah, I do appreciate you bringing in Nicole. I think we are also very excited to get to know Nicole. We
Yes.
were just not aware of the
So that
services she
project, that
provided.
school, it's been going for over
Ah,
a year,
yeah.
it's right.
Well, yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, I've been working with this since
Tracy, the small
20
business
years.
action.
Yeah, so we're thrilled to know that that's a resource that,
It's
um,
huge.
so
Up
I
to
thank you
$10
for bringing,
free.
yeah, thank you
And
for bringing her in.
if- yeah, you
Go
go.
and get this
If I can say
straightened out.
one thing while you're in the witness chair about veggie, that is to the committee, but you know, your input might be helpful.
Sure.
We are running into roadblocks when this bill leaves committee. Multiple other committees, not a different chamber, nothing, but we are running into issues with the forgivable loan program. I did have a back and forth with the relevant stakeholders this morning about tailoring it to flood impacted businesses for this year. And there is a conversation about Vita, where the money would come from, that if it's forgivable, it has been booked elsewhere, that there's no tax credit money allocated right now if it comes in the form of a $10 million tax credit. Do you think businesses still want, if we have to go down this road, non-forgivable loans in flood impacted areas?
No.
Okay.
Or non-forgivable.
I don't wanna insult people by putting out a non.
Right, I think just another loan program, this is where, and I can't.
Do they want, like, zero
specifically to this.
Yeah. Yeah.
We saw a lot of
Yeah.
low to no interest loan
Yeah.
programs immediately
Out
after
there
the
now.
flood.
But only,
People are, took out loans during COVID
Yeah.
that they are
Still paying
needing.
back.
Right, like they have no interest, but they still have to pay them back. They just do not have capacity to take on more debt.
Yeah.
I would say when I was the executive director of BEPC and this idea was first floated, which was made it until March of 2020 when it
Yeah.
imploded. I would say we did hear from businesses who are interested in the BEPC program and just were like, it can't work for
Yeah.
us. It's not necessarily an issue of a small business versus a large business, but a business that is capitalized and can scale.
Yeah.
Versus a business that needs that upfront capital. So this was meeting a need. That was. We had examples of that when I was executive director of
Yeah.
businesses that came in and testified on how this could be
Yeah.
helpful, but it was for the forgivable
Mm-hmm.
piece, with the understanding if they didn't meet their targets, they'd have to repay.
Right.
But if it was just a straight
Yeah.
loan, I'm not sure
Yeah.
the juice is worth this piece.
That's helpful.
can I ask you a
Yeah,
follow-up
sure.
on that?
Yeah.
So if it just included job creation and not the capital portion, would businesses still be interested?
Potentially. I mean, I think right now we're in a situation where if it can be challenging to find employees, and so how we get those businesses to stay, grow, and invest in Vermont is by making those capital investments, where maybe it's a automation that they implement with capital investments so that they don't have to expand into another state where the workforce is available. But if that payroll could include, well, by doing that automation, we're gonna take our staff and we're gonna upskill them, which means they're gonna get paid more, which is, a great opportunity.
Yeah.
Could that be part of that payroll as opposed to, new jobs, but is that growth of payroll from employees within? So they may not grow their actual employee numbers, but they're going to payroll because they're making these capital investments. But when you get fixtures, and I'm thinking of, machines that are exceptionally large and very hard to move.
And help you scale up.
Right, when somebody puts one of those machines into a facility in Vermont, you're making an investment into your future here, because it's challenging. Or if you're building a building, the state sees the benefit of that building in perpetuity because the property taxes, the grand list value increase that gets created when that building is built. But even in that machinery equipment, if it's large equipment that gets placed in a building, it's you're making a commitment here. So if we can encourage businesses to make those investments in Vermont, it ties them more, which is what we want.
Yeah, we want them anchored, not really tied.
Not tied, but we want them
Here in
to,
Vermont. That's why I actually support the capital piece of this, and I'm sorry we're not going forward with that this year, but
It's not, I think appropriations
it's
is
just
rightfully
their hand.
hearing this against other dire needs.
it's a tough year.
It is a very tough year.
It is a tough year, all the way around.
Yeah. So we will see, but it's just helpful, because y'all need to think about this a little bit.
The forgivable piece, yeah.
And I've asked Cassie and Vita specifically to come in just to see there's some money and if it's a tax credit that we can afford and we have the right people around the room to talk about, we can afford a tax credit, but I just, loan would move, but I wanna process that that's not a
Because
small
renewable loans become the tax expenditure, right?
That's right, yeah, so we might still see what we can do. We will still see what we can do. I think.
And that certainly the moving the sunset, making sure it doesn't sunset at the end of this year.
Yeah.
Even if
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
That's happening.
we're still hoping for a
Yeah.
permanent one, but
Yeah, I know.
Okay,
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks. Okay, we have 12 more minutes. I think we have some of our witnesses already, so we could either start moving to H55 or we could talk for another 10 minutes about other topics.
So it's at 10:30 for H55 now?
Oh my God, we have an hour of committee discussion. Are you here for H55?
So this is a testimony.
Oh, you're Herb. I haven't seen your present. Hi, Herb.
It's just a Zoom person.
I really like the testimony. Why don't you get in the witness chair
Okay.
and speak to our
I'm
committee?
interested, yeah,
Because I think I tried to mention to people how much it resonated with me
okay,
to ask for a growing, to ask for the opportunity to grow as a community and not be
Yeah.
to lose your school and lose your house.
Oh, right,
Yeah.
actually,
do you want me to sit down?
yeah, thank you for being here, cause I read your,
Well, yeah,
I read your
I
stuff.
had to pop my head in
Yeah,
here, this is one of
yeah.
my favorite rooms, so.
You would have to for an hour.
Oh, okay. Well, it's about housing, so this is good. So Magali's reminding me,
and you're who?
Herb, yes, I'm Herb.
Magali's reminding me that hour was once we thought we were gonna hear more than 2 half-hour segments from Alan, that we would talk more about housing. This is very relevant to housing, and that
Yeah.
might lead to a bigger discussion till 10:30 about how people are feeling about 687, just from our walk through.
Right.
And cause you've made some great comments about 687 and tier 3 being defined first by the municipality, so everyone's very interested. in
Right,
these kinds of
and I had
things.
assumed that, but that's one of my questions for Ellen,
Yeah,
that it doesn't look like towns would.
I'm gonna pass this around.
I
Yeah,
identified
super.
tier three.
I had some other copies of the actual testimony. I hope they really like the colored maps, so I don't have too many of them.
Look like just one copy.
Yeah, so.
Yeah, so you can read it, and I have it,
Read it, pass it around for map.
we can
Yeah.
also forward it,
Yeah.
because you
yeah,
emailed it
yeah.
to Ed.
But yeah,
Do you want me to sort of recap?
I think what you
What I-
just testified in natural resources.
Yeah, and so it went really well, I just.
So who are you?
I'm Herb Olson. I should remember that. I live in Sarksburg and Addison County. All my lives, I was staff attorney to the Legislative Council for many years. The best, really was the best job.
Oh,
I went on to other things.
glad you had other great jobs.
Yeah,
When did you leave the legislature? Cause
what's that?
when did you leave the legislature?
So that was, it was when Governor Shumlin, no, when Governor Douglas came in.
Yeah, because.
Oh, that was my last 2 years.
And I was,
My first 2 years were his last 2 years.
and so,
I was there for his first 2 years,
so,
last 2 years.
Commissioner Crowley at the time
Yes.
asked that I be general counsel to, Bishka, who is now.
Oh, yeah, DFR, yeah.
And, I.
Oh, cause that's the capacity I remember you in, is DFR's capacity, after you left Ludge Council, cause I came in 205. 2005,
Yeah,
but you left Ludge Council.
some of that, some of.
Was your ledge council jurisdiction commerce? Or was it
Um,
finance?
I split it around.
Yeah, I guess that was back when everyone had to do
And see,
everything.
I did, obviously a lot of financial regulation,
Yeah,
health insurance,
oh, yeah,
big deal.
yeah,
And I got the scars to show it.
yes.
And then, after Governor Shumlin came in, I performed a similar role, but for a very specific agency during the pandemic, Office of Health Insurance Rate.
Mhm.
So that was fun. What did I didn't get you. It's on.
In Rhode Island, you got beat up less than Vermont.
I did,
Oh,
I did, yeah. It was, Vermont has always tried to do a lot. terms of,
Maybe
in
too
terms of
much,
health and health
sometimes.
insurance.
Maybe not.
And so I was kind of, trying to stand for some stuff. And it's kind of- Anyway, let me get back to this. The concern, I live in a small rural town in Essex County, right up on the western slopes of the United States.
And if it's okay, I did hear this, so I'm gonna step out to use the bathroom and come back.
We got hit with so many flies. That was interesting. Our concern about age 687 and to a lesser extent, I think S 311 is that tier 3 and tier 3 boundaries would supersede what we have done in our town in terms of planning.
So when you say our, you're talking about your but you can't speak for all people in Starksboro. You're speaking for the planning commission, for the environmental commission, for what?
I'm speaking for nobody.
Okay, you're just speaking for yourself.
We're a town of 1,700 people, so we all know each other.
We know many of your residents who are very active in this building.
But you do know your town plan. And so,
Yeah,
and so you can speak to
So,
what,
let me show you these things.
yeah,
And our concern is with that, tier 3.
yeah,
This is our town plan right now. This is our zoning map.
Yeah.
The large, green areas, we have protected in a forest conservation district. Can't do anything in there without conditional disturbance. Down along the valley, that's where our ag land is. So if you look at that map, just about everything is, there's very little land to develop. But we're also, like everybody in the state, we're really concerned and want to support affordable housing. So, but we got limited area. We're looking at we're looking at H 687 and the development of tier 3 boundaries. And they wouldn't, they'd be set state level, right? They wouldn't be set at municipal level.
So my understanding from the mapping is that it's beginning at the town level.
right,
And that the town level, well, that's something we have to make sure makes happen, because the town planning is, I think it was sold to us in large measure, and this is gonna be ground up. And that the towns are gonna invest in doing this planning with their regional planning commissions.
right, but let's understand exactly how you envision the problem. Because if we start with that map and
Yeah.
overlay what you believe tier 3 would be,
This
okay,
map,
perfect, so that's the issue, so let me, can I
This
ask a
is-
question?
this
Well, why don't
is-
you finish your
Yeah.
testimony, then
Okay.
you can ask
Yeah,
questions.
so, that would be terrific. That vision that you just described, bottom up.
Yeah.
Is what we're looking. I'm looking at the legislation and I don't see that that's occurring. The boundaries for tier 3 are, it's always important when you're reading legislation to see who the decision maker is. And in this legislation, the decision maker is the state board. They get recommendations from regional planning commissions. There's I think, pretty minimal consultative role for this stuff. But if you were being told that municipalities have a major role in setting boundaries, I respectfully, whoever said that, I just respectfully disagree. And the references in the legislation, and again, Site Natural Resources, I think, was very empathetic to some points that it was made, because I don't know they really had heard that perspective. A lot of the references in the legislation talk about Vermont conservation design, good stuff. Vermont conservation design is looking to have mapping done of, important natural resources, including forest and habitat quarters, things like that. The Department of Fish and Wildlife has created a fantastic mapping data set. I mean, it's really remarkable. And they have mapped out what they consider to be high and highest priority forest parks. So I'm looking at the legislation, I'm trying to piece it together.
So sorry, Forest Parks and Rec did that or Fish and Wildlife?
Fish and Wildlife.
And I have a follow-up on that, because I'm familiar with the ANR atlas, is the,
Land conservation.
That's what he's talking about.
right, but it's the fish and wildlife maps, are those on that ANR?
No, you have to go look somewhere else. So if you,
Okay, so
but I have a link.
You have a link here.
Right.
To your zoning map. and
It's a little, I mean, it's huge. You better have a nice high speed connection to get
Okay.
up in any sort of.
So that's just
Good time.
completely separate from the ANR map,
Well, no,
or the
well,
ANR atlas.
oh, the atlas.
Yeah.
No, the answer.
Okay, because the ANR atlas is pretty amazing. It
Yeah.
has different layers, and I'm
Well,
wondering
I
if
see
one
the-
layer
The
is.
Vermont Conservation Design, that's fascinating.
Okay, gosh, yeah,
But this is a further
okay,
mapping data set.
Got it.
And
Wait, on Fish and Wildlife.
Fish and wildlife, correct. And they, if you get into there, I think over on the left, it says start here.
so that's the bio finder.
The Biofinder 4. They've gone through a few iterations.
Okay.
And again, I think it's a terrific tool for planners, it really is. Because it goes to great lengths to identify things that local regional planners really need to know.
Okay,
However, you know, God bless them. Their mission isn't to solve all the world's state of art. Their mission, quite properly, is to focus on protecting natural resources. It's not their job to balance communities' need to protect natural resources with their need to make sure they have enough for housing. So I'm not denigrating this effort. I think it's really good, but under the legislation that's currently written, I think there are all sorts of, cookie breadcrumbs from the board, the state board, I can't remember what it's called.
Environmental,
yeah.
I changed the name of it.
ERB,
ERB.
Environmental Resources Board, I think this
It
is.
sounds like I.
Or, sounds like half your name, yeah.
No, their board, their name currently is the Natural Resources.
So that, to me, there's a clear link. I was talking to Brian Shoup after my testimony, and he said, you really don't need to warn it. It's really gonna be a lot better than you think. And I told Brian, well, if that's really the case, number one, show me. He knows the legislation, show me why I shouldn't be concerned. I think I'm still gonna be concerned because the decision maker is gonna be far removed from the towns who will be impacted by the boundaries. But that's sort of a structural issue. But if there are actual things that are going on in the legislation, or in the mapping that I should know about, let me know. But right now, I'm worried. Because
Can I ask you a really specific question?
What's
So
that?
what of these places would be, what of these zoning districts would be eliminated if that were imposed on this?
Okay, so
So let's just,
let's take an example.
is that
And
okay?
again, I couldn't blow it out enough. 'cause
Yeah,
I'm in
that's
that
all right.
phase.
Okay,
Let's take. So this is the yellow is our low density residential. And that's generally speaking on either side of our class 3 town roads. It's where people live. It's where if you don't have a whole lot of money, you can still find a relatively inexpensive plot of land, up in the hills. And either build your home or, hire someone to do it or whatever, but it's our affordable housing along with our trailer parks. That's our affordable housing.
so would that be eliminated? I just wanna make some
Yeah, so-
crosshatches
so
so
let's-
that we know exactly what we're
So
talking
look
about.
at the yellow,
Yeah,
okay?
do you guys mind? It's okay.
Well, I'd love to have her finish the testimony,
Yeah, so-
which is because we don't have a lot of time. Damien's here and Keisha hopefully will be back.
I think this is kind of testimony, it would be the
Well, it's an
impact on there.
amplification of it, so, okay, I mean, fine, if this is illustrating the testimony, that's great, let's do it.
Yeah, it is, because my point is, in a town like Starksville, and I think a lot of the rural towns, we don't have all that much land to build on. You know, we're not Burlington, South Burlington, Middlebury, where it's flat, number one.
You're fairly mountainous,
But yeah,
as we know this from many of our people who work in this building.
I am sure. So here's Island Road.
Mm-hmm.
It's got ability, I hate it up here, this way. So, you got land available for development, on each side of Class 3. Here's I think I got it, right? Here's the forest lot. Somewhere.
So if I crosshatch this, is that an accurate depiction of what you believe would not be able to be zoned still in as low density residential?
That's correct.
Okay,
Now, I can't, I'm not saying that it absolutely will. be.
right, but that's your
Because, For example,
concern.
Brian should say,
You're raising the concern that
That's
this
your
is not
concern.
ground up anymore,
Yeah.
which is how it was presented to us, that the mapping, correct me if I'm wrong. My understanding is that the mapping was to begin at the town level, and that the towns were to buy in and work with the regional planning commissions. Set their, we just talked about, right, what are the incentives for towns to do this in a timely fashion? And then the regional planning commissions would be adopting those maps,
Yeah.
and then we would be creating the set maps upon which so much rests.
Right.
So that is very important to me, that this begin
Right.
at the house, at the town level.
And what we learned yesterday was that tier 1 is defined by the town. The language didn't say tier 3. So that's a concern.
that, and I noticed that too.
The entire map, every tier needs to be defined by.
I agree.
Yeah.
Or at least tier 1 and tier 3, because then you know what tier 2 is.
Right,
I'm gonna try to get through it, I think I've gotten all the way through to, I think I've covered most of the points, so, on page 2, I provide, my testimony, I tried to provide something specific with references to the two bills for what I see as the linkage between what's changing. And what's changing, as I saw it, was state board. I like this state board, approving final maps after recommendations from the regional planning commission with what is called a consultative role from municipalities. And I confess, I moved on to the state role for 2 reasons. One happened in the state government. Consultative can be really intense and very good, or it can be kind of a flyover kind of situation, depending on who's doing it themselves. And I've seen consulting that's very rigorous, and I've seen consulting that is, much not much at all, and certainly not actually getting first crack at developing that. And I guess my point around this is that I think we've done a good job, every town's saying a good job, I think we've done a good job. But maybe there's some towns that haven't done a good job, I don't know. But I am fully confident that the legislature, if they want to create some rigorous standards, and if they want to create some accountability mechanisms to make sure that the town is protecting natural resources, I think you can do it.
we do too, and which is why what we've been talking about is, our understanding is that this mapping process was going to be in town bottoms, right, beginning with the towns.
Yeah.
Towns then work with the RPCs to develop the plan and agree to it, and then it gets put in, and then we have maps that we can all defer to as agreed upon, set, and that we
Right.
then make automatic decisions from. What is concerning about Herb's testimony is that that is not what is incorporated in 687. I think we need to clarify that, because that
Absolutely.
is.
Well, at least, that's not the way I'm reading it, Brian Schiff said, you shouldn't worry about Herb and he's gonna get back to me. I just don't see it.
No, you've done the work of reading the bill as former ledge counsel for us that I need to do over the weekend. It's that we just have very little time. Senator Cummings, so thank you.
I think we also need to remember that all towns are not equal. that to do a map when you've got 3 to 5 select board members that are on a volunteer basis and you don't have any
No
kind of,
experience in doing
Or
anything
experience, yeah.
remotely somewhat.
we're gonna have to, if we wanna do this, we're gonna have some resources, some help.
RPCs are
The
getting.
increase in the current PTT proposal is, I think, at 1.5 million, which isn't a lot
Okay,
to meet the need. It's a lot in the budget right now that's the increase that they would get from that PTT proposal.
that's the property transfer.
Yeah.
Yes,
Okay,
the one that we have in 311 that Jane is using to,
okay, but I don't have it to raise it. I need to know when it's coming.
yes,
Finance.
yes, it's all not listed, but yes, once it gets to you.
So I would just say of our small
That
towns,
is fair.
I would say the small towns that I represent,
Yeah.
there are many that have only 3 select board members,
Yeah.
all of whom have planning commissions and all of whom have maps. Because they're working with their regional planning commissions, but in many cases,
Right.
those are required for them to do.
Well, I think what Senator Pinson is saying is let them do it, but give them help. You know,
Yes,
this-
absolutely,
yeah.
that's what we've
yeah.
tried to do.
You say you all making, I think, a terrific point. Our regional planning commission recently came by, to talk to us. And they had, a little bit of, in their budget towards the end of the fiscal year, they had a little bit of money. And what they said, Senator Cummings, is we can give you towns some capacity building around funding super stuff. But it's from within their own budget. Anything that would help regional planning commissions,
Yeah.
especially in the summer.
Yeah,
Anything that would help regional planning commissions, provide, they're the resource, they have the resource. And the way I envision things working there, they provide, they're the help, the support. for the
Yeah.
towns.
yeah.
And the more that they have to work with, the more they can support.
Yeah, that's what that's a regional municipal planning.
And Adam Lucci is our executive director in Addison County, terrific guy.
Okay, absolutely.
Adam Lucci, I can give you his phone number if you want.
That's
He's
fine.
your RPC,
What's that?
he's your RPC, because
Yeah,
Fred
Addison
Penning's your
County, Addison
RPC.
County.
Or Fred Penny's our DC.
RDC.
Okay.
And he said something very interesting. And so he's Addison County. He said, most of the all of the towns in Addison County are rural. Middlebury's a little bigger, but generally they're pretty small rural towns. And he said, folks are, folks feeling a little left behind. And his worry around, he shares my concern around
Yes,
too.
yes.
And he's saying, we really gotta watch. You don't wanna build a dynamic where, we don't have a whole lot of population. So we have some, but you don't wanna build a dynamic where there's there's too much tension, right? Between, what are some really, really good things going on in some of the larger areas.
Right.
We love Chittenden County. We like to make jokes about Chittenden County. We love Chittenden County
We're used to it.
because it's the economic growth center for us. So but we're important too.
Yeah.
We're the workforce.
Yes.
I
I was gonna say, a lot of the workforce for Chittenden County live in Addison.
Well, and if we haven't, I have expressed my emphatic gratitude to you for saying that to your 2 members from Addison County who will play a very important role in the final decision making. They often say, well, we're rural too, but I've been trying to take what you're saying and what our rural caucus is saying and elevate that, and it's something you can uniquely do that I.
That's good. And one of the things we had a Zoom call earlier this week, and I don't think you. So I think I don't know who suggested, but it's the concept of towns can do this. Towns can protect their natural resources, but they need to have capacity, to do the work. This is great stuff. They have they have capacity to have time to look at this
Yeah.
and use it. And frankly, I don't know what's going on in the other towns. Maybe you need to look at standards for how a municipality puts together zoning districts.
Mhm.
The
And
issue of
if you don't,
consistency is becoming extremely important. Because if everybody's doing something differently and the standards aren't there and the checkback mechanism to ensure that you've got statewide consistency, I'm missing that. At least I haven't read it yet.
with the way things are now, yeah.
With the way things are supposed to go.
Yeah. But I think it can be done. And if there's some issues, you can build some accountability mechanisms in there. If some town is saying, well, you gotta develop all this. All that green's fit forest on. In my legislative council hat, I could think of ways to have some accountability. The final point I would mention is, this is the end of my fist, is that, and this is something that was suggested by Lucian also. He's read this legislation and the best fit that he can see for affordable housing for towns like ours is 1B. But right now, small town, they got a small tax base, limited tax base. They're gonna have tough, Starksville has a great water system. But we don't have
Great what system?
water system
Wow.
in the village center. It's really fine.
In the red,
Yeah, and the red.
So you have water and sewer?
No,
just water,
We do
that's
not
why
have
it's
zero.
1B, because 1A is both,
You have to have
right?
both, right?
Yeah,
well, I think 1B,
I think 1B is either. I
Either.
thought. But was,
I'm
That's
not
my
sure.
understanding.
not clear.
Adam was under the impression, so I'm relying on him that. So
Oh, okay, he's probably right.
we were thinking, geez, we can't do that. But he was saying, obviously it costs money, but if you provide small towns the capacity to meet the criteria. I mean, right now we feel, geez, we can't do that. But if we have capacity to meet the criteria, I think that'd be great, of course, cost money.
To put in a wastewater system. is what
Well,
you're saying.
yeah.
Yeah, oh yeah, totally, and there are different kinds now, but yeah.
Or,
Something else that's unclear.
how can you do, sometimes you can do group septic.
Yeah,
system.
exactly,
Not
and there's
now,
also
but
package plans you can do, there's about 3 different things.
There are a
that-
bunch of different things. And have you met with Katie Buckley at VLCT, who's been hired specifically to roll out to every town what their opportunities are with the infrastructure bill that's come from the feds? And I'm unclear what money is still left for towns to apply for exactly this kind of thing.
Mhm.
And this is an important overlay for us
Yeah.
as we look at what towns, particularly towns like yours, let's take Starksburg as an example. You have water already, you've already invested in water. What additional cost would it be to invest in the sewer for that specific area?
Right.
And is there still money left
Yeah.
to apply for this infrastructure money? And I think that's Katie Buckley's question that we have to ask.
No, it's an administration question, because they just did some grants, I think they were announced yesterday.
Yes,
the day
they were,
before.
those were for sewage overflows.
I think it's for
That's what
sewage
Mark
in
was talking
general,
about.
but I think we should look at that, cause I think that's part of that funding,
Come
and
off the
so,
reads and look.
yeah,
Yeah.
somebody, but this committee has a reasonable reason to look at it too, and just ask what is available still,
Yeah.
what's in the pipeline,
This
no
is,
pun intended.
this is your bailiwick, really.
It would be great to have that
Yeah,
line and what's
No.
in the sewage overflow at the.
yes, yes.
What was the name of the individual?
Katie Buckley, Katie Buckley, Buckley, and she's been hired to help towns understand and help leverage more resources for towns, particularly small towns, to access the infrastructure money from the feds.
Sure.
And I may be overstating it, but I don't think that, that's really what I believe she's, everybody's understanding.
Yes, and she's at the league,
She's at the Vermont League of
so it's
Cities.
the Vermont League of Cities and Towns, so you can find her, yeah.
She's at VLCT.
As I failed to introduce myself properly, I'm not official or anything, but I know
You are, you're officially.
So I will give her a call as,
As the planning commissioner.
huh?
I mean, you're officially a planning commissioner.
I was.
You can still, I mean,
A lot, this was the nineties. Right now.
That's right, you're not signing.
My unofficial title, I do have a title in there. And my unofficial title is curmudgeon on the hill.
I thought, it's resident and curmudgeon on the hill.
So
Every time I-
COGH.
Yes.
Can I keep this, please?
Yes, indeed.
Okay, I'm gonna keep
They're also-
this.
Okay,
one.
yeah.
It's also in the text.
But-
There's a
but
link
it's-
in the text.
I love-
Oh, yeah.
And just so I'm clear, can I just, because this is really important.
Yeah.
So what I understand you're saying is it's not just this, it's probably all of the yellows, right?
It's the yellow.
Okay, yeah,
That's kind of our,
so the yellow is the issue, right?
you
So
know,
possibly some of
when
the
my wife
red.
and I came up in the mid seventies, in the mid seventies, right out of college, so right out of law school. You know, what are we gonna do? We're gonna be so we've had,
yeah.
little fun.
Yeah.
We built our house in
Right.
between law school, comes back to law.
It is big, so it's all, so I could do hatch marks on all of the yellow and you would have
Well,
the same concern?
let's make sure.
Okay, but we only have a couple minutes.
Yeah. So,
Or why don't you go back and put the hatch marks yourself so that it's not, we're not doing this in a rush.
Yeah,
Because it needs to be accurate.
it needs to be accurate, this needs to be.
We're still on
known,
time.
again, it's
Okay. Okay, why don't, is that okay? Can I just keep this one so I can explain it to people?
So if you see that road there,
Yeah.
that's that road here.
Yeah.
Okay, so all of, so at least this part of that road would be.
Well,
Yeah, right.
light green is called pine.
I don't want towns
It's
to
not
have.
pine
to
priority, but
Okay,
it's
well-
high priority.
Well, I'm gonna put, it could be, but the dark green is the highest.
Yeah.
So this, so at least this side of the road, and that would illustrate it well.
Yeah, that's a narrow valley, it's like, you know.
Okay.
It goes up steep on either side.
Okay. Okay, but, so why don't, if you can make something like this, showing your exact concern, I think that would be very helpful.
With an overlay of what would be at the moment if this.
Yes.
There's gonna be a battle of the maps by the end of this.
Oh, no,
You
well,
know,
well,
good
well, we
visual
can't have a
is great.
conversation with
Yeah,
that.
exactly.
Yeah, I'll have Brian make his map, that'll be fun.
But the challenge here is we are going to be relying totally on these maps.
Right.
And so they have to be what we want and what towns
And the
want.
process has to be what we want. And
Yes.
and I'll be right
So
back.
the map's integrity is critically important.
Right.
I have to go.
Okay, so
But
thank
I'll
you
be
for
right
every
back.
opportune moment to just walk in and make sure you know.
You know, I have
Timing.
I have the sixth sense.
Timing is everything.
Has never escaped.
Okay,
When did you finish at DFR?
DFR, when Governor Shumlin came in?
Oh, in 11 or.
Yeah,
You were
and.
south.
He was elected in 10.
I actually got a very similar job, or very much, it was the office of the Health Insurance Commissioner in Rhode Island. My wife's family's, you know, from we have some home down there, so it was kind of cool. Anyway, I did that kind of a similar role. Regular. I know how regular. They can be good.
Okay, well, thanks so much for.
Okay, great. I'm happy I had a chance to talk to you and let me know if you have any questions. I will follow up as I promise you, send around Tuesday if I'm up to
Please
the
do.
for nefarious affairs of.
Yes, keep us in the loop on those, we like those.
It's good because you're not afraid of us. We
You
may
know,
be afraid of you.
Yes, that's true. I know, and I'm really, it's really fun to see people who have worked with sisters. The other factor is 72 days, so, yeah, we're not gonna be scared about that.
Exactly.
But some of the times, it's
It
a
was-
frightening to come up here and tell us we're messy things.
So, I appreciate it.
Consent with this.
Take care.
Thank you.
Opportunity, which.
So people can take a bio break if needed. Well, I'd like to start right at 10:30 because
Oh.
we have a lot to consider.
I got it.
You have this?
I do.
So we'll take a break until 10:30.
Okay, great. Thank you. And
Yes, clean up the mess.
bio break.
That's a great idea.
We did that.
Yes.
We get to 10:30, it goes to 12:30.
Give a copy. We're still online.
Yes,